Well, if you're a new participant, welcome to the Sophia Sanctuary, 40 Days of Lent from the Celtic Perspective by author David Cole. If you've been with me all along, welcome back. This is day 20, or Monday, the third week of Lent. And what we're covering today is basically legends and stories and oral traditions. I personally grew up in the South, and I love nothing better than listening to my grandparents and aunts and uncles tell stories about their childhood and the things that happened to them and members of our family. It was sort of in our makeup. And everybody loved it. Now, some of the stories didn't hold completely factual, like in the sense that one of my grandmothers insisted that we were Cree Indian, and when I had my DNA done, there was no Native American in me. So either that particular relative did not reproduce, or somehow she became a part of our family legends and myths. But they were still wonderful stories, and as a child, all of us just loved to be a part of them. And if you think about it, that's how it began with humanity. We began by coming together in small groups, in tribes, and in caves, and in circles, and fires, and kirks, and sharing the stories of our traditions and cultures, and also the fundamentals of teaching the children how to make food and survive and to make it in the world in all the different phases. It wasn't until much later that our sacred texts were actually written down. Now, some of them started not as sacred texts. They started as basically lists of things that needed to be bought, that show up on tablets, cuneiform writings, if you will, clay. And then later on, as humanity began to develop, survival skills, and they started looking beyond just we have to feed ourselves and clothe ourselves, but we're a part of this amazing, great world, then they began to create lores and legends and creation stories about how we became a part of this earth. And this went further down into the traditions of writings on clay, papyrus scrolls, and then eventually we began to write on paper and printing press, and of course now we're a whole new digital world. But the ancient Celts called it passing the harp, and they basically gathered together around the mead hall, and they'd share stories and poems and songs and hymns and, frankly, news of the day. And sometimes the news of the day was created into great epic poems and stories, so that it would be handed down from parent to child to child to child and kept as a part of their culture. One of the first of these that was actually written down in a monastery was done by a monk called Kedman, and it showed up in the ecclesiastical history of the English people. Now, what we're going to do this week is kind of delve into some of the stories that were written by the Celts and how they developed and evolved from their secular stories, or the ancient gods and goddesses, if you will, the fairy, the fae, those legends, and shifted that same storytelling to Christ and the story of Christ and his hero's journey. So today's reading is going to be from Psalm 78, verses 1 through 4. Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings from of old, things that we have heard and known, that our ancestors have told us. We will not hide them from their children. We will tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done. Again, Psalm 78, verses 1 through 4. And the prayer, Creator God, you not only created the world which we see, but you created creativity itself. Thank you for all the creative spirit within humanity. Thank you for all that has inspired me so far in my life. May I learn to harness the creativity which you have placed within me and express it as a part of my spiritual path. Amen. Thanks for joining me today. May the peace of the God of joy go with you. May the love of Christ go with you. And may the grace of Spirit go with you. Amen.